All right.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's program. I'm here to introduce Michael Lick. Oh, wait, we went through it. Can you say your last name, Michael?
Lakiotis. It's long.
Lakiotis.
It's
A
longer than
20 a 20-year retail sales specialist in technology and training who
Mhm.
started his business Technology Within Reach with the goal of advocating for more security and fun as people interact with various tech. He currently lives in Lake Zurich with his wife and two sons. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Welcome.
everyone. I didn't expect January weather in November. Uh, so I appreciate everyone joining us on Zoom. And we will have the chat going. So if you have any questions, I will try to get to it as appropriate. You'll also have a Q&A at the end. But I really feel that if you have a question without kind of glossing over it, or if I use a term that you feel needs further clarification, again, please, I'm happy to answer it and advocate and ask and help. So I'm going to kick it on to the presentation right now. Let me just do that as soon as I move my screen, and we will get started. So let me just make sure I have my chat bubble online. Let's see here. All right, I got the chat up. I'm going to just say hello on the chat for to kind of make sure everyone who is currently on sees that, and then we'll get started. All right. So,
Sorry, let me interrupt you. You have it set to host and panelist.
oh, how do I change it?
So you can like toggle in the chat where it says two.
Ah,
Yeah, change that to everyone, and then everyone can see it.
I'm trying to change that to everyone. All right, there it goes. Anyone can chat. So you got it to hello. All right. So it should.
There it is. Okay.
All right. So that should work now. So thank you, everyone. Got that setting going. All right. So again, ask questions. I'll monitor the chat on my second monitor and ask and answer questions as we're able to. But without further ado, let's kick it off. All right. So who am I? My name is Mike. It's actually now about 20 years of retail management, sales, and electronics troubleshooting experience. I have 3 years of web design and project management. I've hosted training courses for nearly 20 years in various retail and customer-facing operations. And I've always felt that my greatest experiences involved helping people solve issues that made their lives better. I'm a father of two. I'm a woodworking hobbyist and a lifelong Chicago resident. Grew up in Naperville. Got a recent picture of my two kids, William and Alex. They're 5 and 9, and an adorable picture of my youngest son, Alex, eating a duck. I happen to like that one. And really what I've found out over the last few years is that the internet is a non-negotiable part of our lives now, whether it's medical, having to get medical services such as appointments, vaccines, or insurance, to communicating with your family, to shopping, to taxes or banking. You really don't have a whole lot of options but to use the internet. And admittedly, you probably use the internet already. Of course, you're on Zoom. And the internet is very much like learning to drive a car. You spend a lot of money for the latest innovations in safety and protection, but nothing beats safe driving and wearing a seatbelt. And the most important thing I tell people in this entire course with regards to internet scams and internet security is that accidents happen. But unlike driving a car, one thing I found is you don't need a license. Anyone can surf the internet. My 5-year-old surfs the internet. My 9-year-old surfs the internet. My 71-year-old father surfs the internet. And there's a lot of times where people will try to exploit people of those various age groups, specifically senior citizens, but across an entire spectrum. One thing I found is that most scams follow 3 themes. We're going to get into why scams is a big focus here. And I do want to emphasize that when I say that people are targeted all over, they truly are. And they really tend to target your best nature. They target you because they think very often that you're a kind person who can help someone in need, that you're lucky to be chosen, and we're here to help you. Oftentimes, you'll see things with car extended warranties, um, fortunes lost, we'll get into that, to offering or needing gift cards. Another way that they target people is with fear. Only your compliance and or your money will make this go away. And that can take a whole lot of various forms. And there are exceptions to this, but the vast majority of this have to do with consumers, small business owners, large companies, um, with their and government entities. They have their own set of challenges. We're really not going to touch on those tonight. What we're going to touch on is the ways that many people fall victim to various um, scams and what they can do about it. I do want to say a quick note about antiviruses and automation. You're going to hear a lot tonight about antiviruses and other programs that keep you safe. And I will be honest, they sort of work in the way a lock works. Um, my friend is actually a novice lock picker. And one thing she's always said is that a lock can be picked. And she has picked up locks from going back 2 centuries to some of the most recent state of the art locks that are available. It doesn't matter how good your lock is if you open the door. And that's really the big issue. I read something yesterday online that said most internet security issues or security concerns have to do with the consumer. And it has very little to do with how sophisticated the software is or anything else. It really comes down to understanding human behavior. Education and understanding will do more than any program ever can. And I truly believe that. When you have the right skills and knowledge and drive safely on the internet, you typically are going to make better choices and see scams before they might hit you. Continue. Ransomware. I got a few terms to throw out. Ransomware is a type of malicious software program designed to block access to a computer until a sum of money is paid. I'll give you a great example. I had someone who had a small business. They had a virus on their computer that said that they needed to deposit a certain amount of Bitcoin into a locker fund, or else all the information on that computer will be erased. You'll hear a lot about ransomware. It typically targets small businesses and healthcare industries like hospitals and police and other civic services. But you'll hear a lot about it because it makes the news. Malware. This is software that is specifically designed to disrupt, damage, or gain unauthorized access to a computer system. Sometimes that's getting into your computer to look at files or to try to get a credit card information or to see what kind of info is on your computer. A computer virus is actually a type of malware that, when it's executed, replicates itself by modifying other programs and inserting its own code into those programs. That's a really boring and dry definition. But basically, what it is, it's a program that will constantly mess with your computer in some way. But the most common thing doesn't even have to do with viruses. This term is called phishing, spelled much like the Seminole rock band. The fraudulent practice of sending emails or other messages purporting to be from reputable companies in order to induce individuals to reveal personal information, such as passwords and credit card numbers. Again, a dry definition. Basically, phishing is about lying to you in a form of communication that many people believe, and they will then provide that information. There is no virus needed for that. There is no malware needed for that. There is really nothing needed for that. It really just comes down to one-on-one communication. Antivirus software, if you did not know, can be described as anti-malware. It is a computer program used to prevent, detect, and remove malware. Antivirus software was originally developed to remove computer viruses, hence the name. And there's really three virtues to staying safe with however you decide to surf the internet. And the first is to be safe. Even small actions stop big crimes. Be humble. This is a big one. Be open and candid when you're being tricked. And the third is learn from history. Take smart steps to protect your family and your friends. Um, Back to the be humble point, and we'll talk about this more. But the thing that really targets certain groups, particularly those who didn't grow up with the internet, or even those who grew up with the internet in a much earlier time period, is that when we are tricked or we realize that we are the victim of a scam, there's an intense level of shame that comes along with being scammed. It doesn't feel good to say that you were tricked. Unfortunately, um, thieves know that, and thieves exploit that you will not talk or you'll talk to just a few people. And that lack of personal advocacy creates a situation where people that can exploit that, well, they're going to exploit it. One last thing about me, and really why there's this big onus for the course, is that yeah, as a retail manager for 20 years now, I really hate when people are taken advantage of. As a manager, I've accepted checks that were stolen, didn't know it at the time, credit card information that was fraudulent, and discovered gift cards that were used or given to a scammer far too late to really fix it at my level. I've seen the anguish across people's faces as they realize there's been a terrible mistake. And people want this to get solved right away. They want immediate resolutions. And even large multi-billion-dollar companies will move slowly to ensure that they're getting it right. It takes a long time for them to admit that, yeah, this $2,000 in gift cards probably shouldn't have been activated. But they want to make sure that they've done the right steps for their own business before potentially losing another $2,000. All right. So the technology is relatively new. Computer internet use has only been mainstream for about 30 to 23 years, depending on how you really look at it. For me, I've had the internet since 1988, so quite a long time. Con man stems from the old term of confidence man. And a confidence man was really all about making you feel assured or capable they were solving or giving you something. You may have heard of snake oil salesmen and those other terms, but basically, con men are about giving you a sense of confidence in exchange for your money or your attention. Let's talk scams. So, scams by the numbers. It's estimated that in the year 2020, when everyone was home for the pandemic, an estimated $1.5 billion was lost. Well, we all got outside again, but that number ballooned to $10.3 billion lost by 2022. And scammers target everyone, but they absolutely target the 56 million adults over the age of 65. Now, they estimate that the average scam costs people $567 on average, but many scams can run into thousands of dollars in charges. What makes that even more complicated is that it's suspected that most scams are not reported and that the largest scams currently involve cryptocurrency. You may have heard of things like Bitcoin and Dogecoin and crypto lockers. I don't touch on that a whole lot in this course. I'm happy to answer questions as they may arise. But what happens is that they typically want money in that way. They want you to say, invest in Bitcoin, or when you have ransomware, to give us money in the form of a digital cryptocurrency. The most common emotion felt after someone was scammed is panic until or if the monetary problem is solved. Of course, you're missing a lot of money. Overwhelming shame for having fell for it. And then anger that more cannot be done to stop the scammers. Anger. About the scammers. Thieves move extremely quickly. One thing that often happens for gift card scams is they activate them within a matter of minutes. And many retailers, including some large big box stores, can't stop or reverse this in a timely manner. As an example, someone could give the gift cards to someone who was tricking them. That person activates them into their own account with whatever company that is, like Target or Best Buy or who have you. And by the time that phone call is done, that money is spent or otherwise allocated from those gift cards in a way that they're basically not going to get back. And for credit cards, the game is to spend that money as fast as possible. Get cash or gift cards before the credit card companies or businesses get involved. It's very popular to find or to scam someone's debit card, as an example. And what they'll do is they will buy a lot of gift cards, maybe one or two items from a retail store. But really, the big thing is the hundred or thousands of dollars of gift cards they're adding on it. Sometimes to throw a eager salesman or saleswoman off the scent, they will buy something that's like a big ticket item, like a MacBook or an iPhone, or something that's really expensive, like a North Face jacket. And that's well and good. And that might even be what's called like a finder's fee or fee for the person who's actually doing that. But the actual gift cards themselves, that's really where the money is. It's not about the jacket or the iPhone or the MacBook. A lot of thieves, they justify some of their actions knowing that the credit card companies or banks will foot the bill. You might have emotional distress, but for a lot of people, particularly when a good credit card company is involved, they're eventually going to cover these losses. And it will cause you more emotional distress than it will financial duress in most scenarios. Let's talk more about the scammers. They can reside in the US, but they also reside internationally. They're all ages, and like any business, and they are a business, they spend money to make money. They make websites, they get phone numbers, they make emails that look authentic and with pictures. And their goal is to appear human and capable. Like a con man, all they need is your help. All they need is your money. All they need is your attention. Now you might think, why can't they be stopped? Why can't we just break them up, get this solved, or find some way to identify them? The reality is that they hide where they're from. There's many ways that they can do this. They will typically move very fast. And the reality is the person scamming you is likely a low-level employee. They are people who need a fast dollar and listen to people who insist that they can help them. There's someone in charge. It's really like a business. Sometimes they have payroll with incentives and bonuses. And it works, and they keep getting paid, so they keep trying. They might do one scam and then do another. And then the unfortunate reality is the solutions to this require competitors and countries to work very closely together. Verizon cannot force a solution on its own. The United States can't force a solution on its own. Verizon would have to agree to solutions that T-Mobile and AT&T and others would require. And even states would need to help each other. And as we know in Illinois, not all states agree or are willing to cooperate with other states, or they will do so in a way that doesn't work. And of course, one of the largest bodies for scams and viruses and bad software is Russia. The United States aren't working really closely with Russia these days. And of course, even when people agree there is a problem, that doesn't mean they agree on how to solve it. Let's talk about the three main topics. Online texts, emails, websites. This is the majority of where our content will be today. And then, of course, we have the phone and the traditional mail, snail mail, like US Postal Service. These three things, online, phone, and mail, this is where the tried and true methods come from, the phone and traditional mail. A lot of the same scams that now are online were really originated on the phone and via traditional mail. Here's a really important point, and if you take anything from this lesson, and this is something that a lot of people kind of struggle with, is that nothing is free. When I grew up as a kid, I always saw commercials for Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. Send in a little form, you could win millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Um, Sounds really cool. And if you go online today, you will still see lots of things that purport to be free or to be able to help people. And none of it's true. Uh, Free in services and free in terms of product or ridiculously good pricing, it really doesn't exist. Nothing, nothing is free. And then if you are online and you see something that's too good to be true, if something claims to be foolproof, drive very slowly and be careful. Be very cautious of anything that seems too good to be true. There's a commercial primarily playing before 9 a.m. on a lot of news stations in Chicagoland that tells you you can get an iPad Pro, which retails for about $800 to $1,000 for about 70 to 80 bucks. It's not true, and that's on a major network. Let's talk about phishing, sending emails, messages, pretending to be someone reputable. And lucky you, someone has sent something to your inbox or on a website that purports to have free iPhones, free iPads, free trips, cheap or free medicine, and enough money to live well if you'll just send them some. Congratulations, as you see in this picture. Get the Apple iPad free. That's a really old iPad, by the way. They don't look like that anymore. If you're 45 and male, you can qualify. Not true. You may have heard of what's called the Nigerian prince scam or others like it. This started out decades ago as a regular mail. And basically, what it was someone purporting to be a Nigerian prince's attache or assistant, or even the person themselves, someone that's representing this wealthy person. And they are promising you a fraction of their wealth for simply helping handle the money, either for a transfer fee or just giving your routing number and credit card. People wanting to be kind and generous will give them their information. This is a very successful scam. They're interactive. When you're dealing with a scammer online, they're very likely to actually talk to you. They will often have very obvious flaws in spelling or grammar. This is a really important point. This is intentional. The more people that it acts as almost like a filter. If people say, wow, they can't even do a sentence correctly, they're going to immediately say, wow, this is not real. They're going to just delete the email, ignore it, move on. But someone who doesn't catch those spelling errors, it's more likely that they're going to continue the conversation. And that's a more lucrative person for the scammers to talk to. And they'll often talk to you and they'll be supportive up until the money or the banking information is theirs. Then they're done with you. They'll never hear from again. Click the phone call, the email chain, it's all over. And I have some examples of that. So this is spoofing. And this is an email that was sent to me by one of my colleagues. And it says, hello, hope you're good. Do you order on Amazon site? Thanks, sent from my iPhone. Now on my computer, on my internet box, this looked just like an email, including the kind of bad grammar and and capitalization and just general orderliness that my friend and colleague would have done online. So you can see my email. And I sent this to our peer and I said, I think he was hacked. Can you text him to make him aware? I'm emailing him too. And I emailed that same person saying, hey, do you order on Amazon? I'm emailing you, as well as asking Lauren to text to inform you that you may have been hacked. See this forwarded email below. And because we're on a website together that we both run, I am resetting your password as a security precaution. And I did. Here's the reply. I'm not hacked. I sent you this email because I need your assistance. I don't believe it at this point, but I'm still willing to play along and see what's happening. What's going on, I say. I'm glad you responded. And I won't read the whole thing, but basically, I've been trying to purchase $200 Amazon gift card for my friend whose birthday is today. Unfortunately, she is down with cancer of the liver, and I promised I'd get the card for her today. Now, this tugs at my heartstrings. I lost my mother to cancer. I've lost several close family members to cancer. And this is someone, my coworker and colleague and peer, who I genuinely care about. So this would tug at my heartstrings. Um, Reality is, I ignored the email chain at this point, and my friend eventually and colleague did eventually get back to me, and he got his email situation sorted out. What happened was his email address looked the same, his name looked the same. In this case, someone either had access to his email box and created kind of a basically it started sending emails, and that can come from a whole variety of things. Very commonly, it's because they may have used the same password for a different website. Um, I looked on my Google Chrome browser, which allows me to see all the passwords I have on various websites. And in just the last 3 years, I've created accounts on 119 websites. It's a lot. And if you use the same password on a malicious website that may have been hacked, who's to say you haven't used that same password for your Gmail account or for a healthcare account? And so it's really quite common that one password is multiple passwords. There's also the fact of how did they get our information? Well, I have an email that was an example of something that looks like it's from Costco. And I've had texts like this, I've had phone calls like this, but I've had a lot of emails like this. Unfortunately, the delivery of your order was canceled because the recipient wasn't correct. Please do so within 1 week. Otherwise, you'll get your money back less 21% since your order was booked before Christmas. Now, Costco isn't going to do that. They're not going to take 21% of your money. But if you think that, oh, did someone order me something from Costco? I love Costco, but you might lose 21% of it. You're going to click that email or fill out that form, and you're going to get information that person wants. There's our free iPad again. Someone could click, and if you're 45 and male, I want an iPad. I'll tell you my name. I'll tell you my address. I'll use an email address. It can get that information can get real sticky, real fast. Here's another spoof. This is from the Villa Park Library. This is a scam that somebody got, Villa Park Library. But if you look at that email address, and I'm highlighting it in my cursor, it looks just like a real email address from that library. And if someone were to click that link or click that link, they would actually be sent to this website below. And it's a whole lot of gobbledygook. You don't really have to read it. But at the end of the day, it's definitely not that library. And when you hover over a link in a browser, very often it will tell you exactly where it is you're going. Hovering over a link tells you a lot, like I was showing. Here it shows that this actual ask at dppl.info was support at prometsource.com. Not really involved with that library. Of course, there's other ways to get spoofed. It can be completely random. Sometimes they can guess a really gullible password. Some people still use the password of password. Or if they're feeling really sophisticated, password 123. Insecure password or reused passwords from a compromised site. We touched on that already. Following a link on a non-popular page. Talk about that. And then, of course, there's downloading files and software from untrustworthy sources. Here is a couple of ads, for instance, that, again, nothing is free, But these are a couple of ads that were sent to me on a website that I went to from the Finance Daily, as you can see, and Laptop Deals. Oops. Illinois will cover the cost to install solar in these zip codes in October. Wow, solar was not cheap. And unused, never sold laptops are almost being given away. See the prices. I like cheap technology. Where was this nonsense? Well, it was on the site nbcnews.com/select. Crazy, right? And what's crazy about this is that if you click the link below on the bottom of that page, that takes you to NBC News. And it's kind of crazy. I don't know if this site was just linking to look like NBC News or if it actually is run by NBC. And it can be very confusing because many websites of reputable companies will take ads from less than reputable sources. And unfortunately, most companies don't police their ads. Many ads are too good to be true. They rely on our anxieties, crime, taxes, weather, energy bills, healthcare, retirement. And I really want to emphasize they don't matter if you lean conservative, Republican, if you think if it's all nonsense. The big news sites and a lot of retail sites will use less than reputable ads. What is a good rule, though, is that the smaller the site, the more likely they are to use these cheap ads. Fake emails. Again, here's another example of a fake email. This one looks like it's from United States Postal Service, USPS.com. Our courier couldn't make the delivery of parcel to you in the 20th of August. Print label and show it in the nearest post office. It's not true. It's not how the post office works. But I'll be honest with you, a lot of people, they get lonely. And if someone realized there's a package coming from me, that creates a rush of happiness that a lot of people will let override their common sense. What can you do when these things happen? It sounds cliche, but the first thing you can do is shop larger companies online. Don't click things that have your town name on it. And if it's too good to be true, again, it is. And this rule is less than true, particularly in recent months, and I'll explain why. But when you're shopping online, this is a symbol that the site is safer to enter information to. And it basically, on most browsers, it shows up as a lock. Now, since I've created this initial presentation, many internet browsers have done away with that because it's really not as secure as it used to be, which is why I think the first rule remains true. Shop larger companies online that you see good reviews for, that you can see that they have a physical location and generally have a name that you are comfortable doing business with. There's a lot more incentive for Amazon, for instance, to protect your identity and to protect your credit card than it is for Joe's Discount Electronics. I don't know if Joe's Discount Electronics exists. There's quite a few companies online that just don't have the security that a large company will have. You should always research the company you're doing business with. And this is a really important point, and a lot of people don't realize this, but this is why there's a distinct difference between credit cards and debit cards. If a credit card company, you're going to pay your credit card company in most cases within the first month, right? Or after you get your bill. If you're using your debit card, that's right out of your checking account. And debit cards, even if they have a Visa or a MasterCard logo, take much longer to get reconciled or to get the money put back into your account than if it is a true credit card. And lastly, be smart with your downloads. Now, I know Disney, Netflix, Amazon, HBO, or Max, I guess it's called, and all these other services have doubled or greatly increased the prices of their streaming services. It's very tempting to say, well, I'll just sail the high internet seas and download something. but it really deserves to be smart about where you download things from. On the computer, I really recommend that you can always have an antivirus, but I really recommend what's called Windows Defender. It's a free download if you have Windows. On a Mac or iPhone, it's really hard to go into a situation where you need to have an antivirus. A lot of computer bad programming targets Windows. And part of the reason for that is um, about 85 to 80% of all active users who use a computer um, are using Windows. So if you're a thief or a scammer and you're trying to cast the widest net possible, do you target the 20% of Apple users or the 80% of Windows users? Almost every case, they target the 80%, 85% of Windows users. On Android phones, a little bit less safe than some of the Mac or iPhone. I have an Android phone myself and an iPhone. But on Android phones, it really helps to check the reviews of certain apps to make sure that they're safe. iPhone does do a better job of curating the programs that are available on their app store. Android is a little bit more Wild West. Now let's talk about paid for antiviruses. Most people simply don't need it, but it can be helpful if you serve a lot of diverse offerings or go to websites that are more international. A lot of antivirus software uses predatory language, and it can slow down your computer. Not all antivirus programs are made by people with their best of intentions. Some of those companies in the past, and we'll get to this in a second, had less than ethical business practices. I'm sure by now you've heard of McAfee and Kaspersky. To touch on the point of Kaspersky, this used to be one of the most popular and inexpensive antivirus programs sold in the United States. Made the owner of the company, who was Russian, very wealthy. And it was in the latter days of, I believe, the Obama administration that it was actually banned from sale in the United States due to security concerns. And this wasn't some obscure program that you had to go to some website. It was sold on Amazon. It was sold at Best Buy. It was sold at a lot of places. Antivirus software is also essentially useless on a cell phone or a tablet. It's really hard to get a virus, given on how those bits of technology work. And lastly, you can use Windows Defender, you can use Norton antivirus or any antivirus you so choose, but it still can't stop you from overriding its warnings. If you go to that website, click beyond those warnings, you might still get affected. You might still have someone who steals your information. So let's say you got fooled. You sent your friend that gift card. You sent them your credit card information. You filled out that bad form online. First thing you have to do is you have to breathe. There's tools at your disposal. Contact your credit card company immediately. Contact the company involved. If places like Target and Best Buy, very often they'll put you in touch with a corporate number that can research that fully. Often in stores, it is very hard to reverse gift card or credit card transactions. Mute. Hold on, I'm not muted. Good. A password book at home, believe it or not, is safer than a file on your computer. If it's missing, you know what you have to do. And then simple words, phrases, and names are easy to find. What I mean by that is predictable passwords. So my name is Mike. I grew up in Chicagoland. It might not surprise you that in the early days of me browsing the internet in high school, my password was Jordan23. I grew up in the golden era of the Bulls 2 dynasties. It was pretty cool. And Jordan23 is a pretty easy password to remember. And if someone's in the Chicagoland area and they're of a certain age, that's not exactly a wrong guess for many people. Let's Talk about that password book again. A password book is safer than a file on your computer because if your door is locked, most people aren't robbed at home compared to online. A password book requires them to have access to your place. And for most thieves, that's too much work. That's too much danger. They don't know how dangerous your dog is. They don't know how dangerous you are. It's much easier to be a faceless person online and to move on. People can find out where you live or went to school with minimal work. You can find out I lived in Naperville within a couple clicks by just searching my internet name. You can find out where I work. You can find out what my favorite sports team is if I keep my profile information on Facebook or Instagram public. Now, there are password managers, and I show an example from Google Chrome. Password managers will alert you to compromised issues. In this case, 150 weak passwords, that meaning there would be not impossible to guess, but not awful, and 49 compromised passwords. Those are companies that have reported that their database was breached. Not good. Let's talk about ransomware again. I mentioned it earlier. Ransomware is when a computer program is basically taking over your machine. They need your credit card information or Bitcoin information so that they can release your computer. And I really want to tell most people that this is the rarest form that targets consumers. It targets businesses. It targets hospitals and healthcare entities. A virus that takes over your computer demands payment, usually like digital currency, or they will erase your data. It rarely targets non-famous or political individuals. The reason why it can target those things is because if a hospital has all this patient data, well, that's hugely damaging. Now, if my computer got targeted, you might get some pictures of my kids. You might get a credit card information. At the end of the day, I can quickly get that information either backed up or live without those pictures than paying someone thousands of dollars. Whereas if you target a hospital and you have tens of thousands of records of families who are vulnerable due to illness or death, or just simply being a business in the area that needs to be trusted, there's a greater incentive for them to play ball with how valuable and fragile that information is. Good practices scale with budget. You should be smart with how you surf, open emails and download. Have backups regularly and back up your system regularly. And of course, I like a multiple tier approach. Big companies provide ways to back up your data for a fee. I use a few examples: Microsoft OneDrive, Apple iCloud, or Google Drive. For me, I pay Google $20, I think it's $20 a year to have 100 gigs online. It's not a lot, but it backs up my phones and my most valuable data. And then I also recommend, for a lot of people, it's just easier and cheaper to throw away a compromised computer. For a person, even $1,000 computer loss can sometimes be less than what ransomware demands. And then I always recommend, if you're comfortable backing up your computer with like a backup hard drive or flash drives, you should do that as well. Why backups are your best friend? They provide peace of mind even if your machine breaks. Your hard drive goes, you have power surge. And then I actually like a backup of a backup. So if you can afford it, I actually recommend most people to have at least 2 backups. And in my case, I have a backup that I run about once a month. It's a big hard drive, 2 terabytes, bought it for like $100 at Costco. And I use that to back up my data. And it's pretty easy. But about once every few months, I will actually get a hard drive from my father-in-law's place. He lives a few towns over from where I do. And what I do is I back up all my data to that hard drive that stays at his house. He actually has a gun safe, and I keep my hard drive in his gun safe. Why do I do that, and why do I have one of his hard drives in my fire safe? The reason for that is if something were to, like a fire or a tornado, to compromise my office where my computer and hard drive is, it's a good chance both of those devices are destroyed. But my father-in-law, who's a couple towns over, if his house is destroyed and my house is destroyed and both of our backups are destroyed in the same instance, well, that's a bigger event. Probably I'm not so worried about my photos anymore. And it's a lot better to lose 3 months of pictures than 3 years. And for a lot of computers and a lot of companies, we're not talking 3 months or 3 years. We're talking potentially many years or decades of information that is essentially been compromised. So while again, $1,000 is not a small sum of money compared to the amount of money that these companies can lose by not having that data, it's quite small. Last note, and this is a personal preference. If you want the least amount of intrusive ads, I really recommend that you use Firefox, or if you have an Apple computer, to use Safari. Now, I also use Google Chrome in my personal use. I happen to really like Google Chrome, but they are being less than kind to what are called add-ons. And this one is called AdBlock. Basically, this is something that helps stop pop-ups. It helps stop intrusive ads from taking over your screen. And it can range from news sites to political sites to adult sites. But basically, these programs try to stop those intrusive ads that run, even on reputable sites. None of this is new. Back when I was new into technology, I actually used to do IT support in the dormitories at Illinois State for a very brief bit of time. And sometimes you'd have a Windows XP computer, much like you see here, and I would see this charming little purple monkey called the Bonsai Buddy. The Bonsai Buddy would take notes. The Bonsai Buddy would take over your screen and tell jokes. The Bonsai Buddy turned relatively slow computers into absolute rocks. This was something that people downloaded, it was free, and it drastically slowed down their computer, and it appeared legitimate. And people downloaded it. They thought it was fun. They thought it was kooky. But this monkey, this program, it really slowed down a bunch of computers. And that was really a hard thing for a lot of people to part with. I remember I was actually helping out a neighbor of my dad's business when I was home one summer trying to fix her computer. And she was legitimately sad that I insisted that we delete the Bonsai Buddy. Her computer was running, but she missed that cuddly friend. Phone calls. I've had texts and calls that even mention my Honda Accord. One of my cars is a Honda Accord, mentioning my car extended warranty. I've also seen people that say you've won a trip. I have had calls, and many people have had calls purporting to be the IRS or the FBI. And now the big trend is around human interactions. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? And of course, you, being a nice person, many people will try to respond, yes, hi, I can hear you. These scams, they're targeting and trying to get you to have a human conversation before launching into their spiel. It sounds more human. It sounds more real. Some really important points. IRS is never going to call you first. They have other ways of getting in contact with you, usually the mail. Local numbers don't mean anything, unfortunately. Just because a number says 630 or 847 does not mean much. Could be a scammer in the area, could be using a line that they have created. And I have to remind again, free doesn't exist. Too cheap to be true doesn't exist. And we're talking medicine, Medicaid help, we're talking cruises, lots of things. And then, of course, do not say yes, no, your name, etc. Recording your voice and your assent is really important. If I said, hi, my name is Mike Lakiotis. Yes, I do not want to be included in your mailing list. It's very easy to chop that up, get my information, and redirect that into something I did not want to say. And of course, they might even tell you, whether that's true or not, your call may be monitored or recorded for quality assurance purposes. I use the exact same dialect that, for instance, a large company may use. Real important point. Most mail these days is junk. My poor mailman delivers me more junk than I do bills or actual mail. Mail delivery is expensive, and vetting and weaning out who is a legitimate business is a time-consuming process, and it's quick for scammers to move on and change their names. The whack-a-mole I mentioned earlier. And if you do get an email or a letter or a voicemail or a website that has a number to call, Google search the name of that company and call that number. Often you'll find it wasn't Comcast, the IRS, or your car's extended warranty. My wife actually got a call very recently that purported to be Comcast, Xfinity. And they said, changes to your bill are coming online. Please call here if we have any questions. She almost called. She actually sent me the text, and I said, that's 100% a scam. She looked up Comcast's number. She called that number. It was completely different. And the customer service rep on the other phone said, yeah, we're getting that a lot lately. Why is this so hard to solve? Thieves are often paying customers, and they lie, play innocent, or whack-a-mole when caught. It's a very expensive prospect for companies or government entities like the Post Service to determine who is being reputable and who's just a fly-by-night scammer. Big companies and governments move a lot slower than nimble, fast thieves. Companies don't usually work together, and when they do want to work together, they cannot agree on a mutual solution. And this is, again, like I said, with Russia and the United States, this is true for governments as well. And then, of course, there's funding. The United States is often not going to fund cybersecurity the way that Canada or Mexico or some of our other global partners will. And then the unfortunate reality, if you haven't noticed, is that these practices are not that far off from what many reputable businesses do. They solicit. They promise solutions that are fast and cheaper than their competitors. And things get so fuzzy with businesses sounding legitimate, being a part of our life. Most people don't realize when they hear on a commercial or they hear on their favorite podcast or news station or blog that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is not actually a part of the government. Caller ID doesn't always work the way it should, even after 30 years. News sites, papers, and mailers have advertisements that look like news. These are called advertorials. I actually used to write advertorials for a local newspaper. Research takes time and, above all, accountability. And of course, we don't always choose where it is convenient to shop, what arrives on our phone or mail, but we can make our opinion known. And as I've said previously, shame is the greatest weapon a con man has. When we take it away, solutions arise and they run for the hills. What I really mean by that point is that you are less likely when you're ashamed again, or when it's a news site that you trust, to have complaints. For many people, they think, oh, it's the other person. It's the other political leaning that they're targeting, or it's on that site. It's really hard for you to believe that a site that you go to, that you spend your time on, may not have your best interests involved. And again, 3 big things for staying safe. Be safe, small steps, be humble, and learn from that history. We're nearing the end, but I have had some very common questions that have occurred. And that's, of course, how should I pay for things online? The first is credit card, never debit. Again, debit takes long to recover. Are phone-based or watch-based phone pay services like Apple Pay, Google Wallet safe? And the long and short answer to that is they're about as safe as using a credit card. Very convenient. They have a certain level of protection. This is called encryption that can protect you. It's a lot safer than the older methods, which were the magnetic stripe on the back of the credit card, or the even older method, which was the basically creating an ink facsimile of a credit card at a store. A lot of people say, do they need a new computer? And the reason why people ask if they need a new computer is very often companies will end support for protecting some of the basics of their program. So for instance, I'm running my computer on Windows 10. I'm sorry, on Windows 11. But in October 14th, in 2 years, 2025, there will be no more versions of Windows 10 released. So for people that have older Macs that are no longer getting software updates, for people that are getting computers running Windows 8, Windows XP, there already are there's not going to be a whole lot of updates for that. There's not going to be a whole lot of internal software that's going to be run that's safe on those. And again, I don't tell people usually on a blanket basis, do you need a new computer? Finances are different for everyone, and we have to respect that. There are realities with security that can tell people it is a safer bet to have a new computer with an antivirus like Windows Defender, or to have a computer that gets these software updates from the manufacturer like Apple or Microsoft that make your computer safer. And then, of course, people ask me, Apple or Android, Windows or Mac? And, I have Apple computers, I have Windows computers, I have an Android phone, I have an iPhone. I really recommend that a good quality device that fits your budget and is able to be up to date is better than nothing, or a computer that's outdated. And that a cheap hard drive, maybe even a flash drive that has your family photos for $10 at Walmart, is a much better proposition and a much better safety device for keeping your photos safe than having no hard drive. When it comes to a lot of the software and things that happen with computers, there's a lot of gray area, and there's a lot of different technologies that are out there to help protect you. But again, common sense, talking up when you feel shame and when you feel embarrassed, it means a lot. During one of my live seminars at a different library, we had a young woman who shared examples in tears, really, of how her father was scammed out of $10,000. And the other attendees learned from it. And when we share those experiences with our neighbors and friends, that's truly how we are able to talk about it and feel accountable for it. And it's also important that we tell the companies that we do business with, hey, there's a company purporting to be you online. Or if you're going to a news organization, or your congressman is not doing what you feel is necessary, even if you voted for them, even if you didn't vote for them, to let them know that you demand results and accountability for this, because it's very expensive and it's very politically complicated for many people to come to a common solution to solve this. The first step is to understand that it targets everyone, and that it targets them in a way that is a shared universal experience of shaming you. And you don't have to be. You are able to take pride that there are resources available to you, and that there are sympathies and ways that this can get solved for you. I'm generally going to open up this to questions, but I really feel that the most important thing people can do is slow down, be safe, and be humble. When we talk about these issues, when we're willing to be accountable for these issues, that communication solves most of these concerns that happen to so many people. If had my wife not sent me that text and me not sent that scam, well, I'm a security and technology expert. What if I wasn't? What if I said, you better call that number? Someone could have had my wife's credit card or email information just from that one phone call. And again, I've always felt that keeping people safe is paramount. And I thank you very much for your time and patience for the last hour. It is now 8:01, and I'm very happy to open up to any questions you may have. You can open the chat. You can raise your hand if you so choose, and I will be very happy to answer it. If not, wish you an amazing night. I'll be on for a couple more minutes unless someone has something.
Thanks, Mike. That was great. I was while you were talking, I was thinking about something that we recently experienced. We did this misinformation program at the library, and our librarian and the host of the speaker of the program shared this website that she found. It was oh gosh, what are those places called where you buy like cheap clothes? The outlet, it was the weberoutlet.com or something like that. Weber Grills. And it looked like a perfect email website where you could buy a Weber grill that's like $700. They were selling it for like 80. And we tried so hard to figure out why, like how they could do that, or figure out why it wasn't, or just to find something that told us that it was a scam. And really, I mean, just to our eyes, it was really the only thing was the price. And I was just thinking, like, somebody probably tried to buy that. And then they have credit card information and
Exactly. One of the really kind of shared experiences that I think most people have had since the pandemic is I think most people can agree that everything is way too expensive. Getting a Honda Accord, which just 7 years ago, my Honda Accord cost 20 in the mid 20s. Now, a similarly spec Honda Accord is $33,000. Is
yeah.
that car 30? Is that car several $1,000s more? Is that grill really worth that? No one really believes that the cost we're paying for a lot of reputable companies is what that value is. And we think that there's a true price that is what it is. A lot of people say, well, of course it costs Apple just $200 to make an iPhone. They can sell it to me for 200. That's a complicated answer. And of course, most companies exist for profit and to give money back to their shareholders in most cases. But there is a shared experience, more so than ever with how inflation has gone, that everything is too expensive. And if I wait for Black Friday, or I wait for the sale, or I wait for the clearance, or I find this website, or I do blank, then I'll be able to get beyond it. And unfortunately, that shared economic anxiety is something that is absolutely preyed on from across a variety of spectrums. It particularly targets consumer goods and healthcare services.
Yeah.
A very common example that everyone has heard of course, is the free Viagra pills online. There's been examples of get your drugs from Canada. And while sure, I'm sure some people are getting their drugs from Canada for a lot cheaper, it certainly isn't every website or email purporting to do so. And healthcare is terrifyingly expensive in this country. And that means, again, it provides a venue for people to be exploited. And it looks so real and it's so tempting that it overrides our better judgment and our skepticism. And it also overrides our sense that, man, I really don't want to pay $700 for that Weber grill.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So,
Well, if there's no other questions from the audience, I really do appreciate your insight and your expertise in the subject. I think a lot of us have kind of run into these things. I know at the library we do a lot of kind of like phishing training for our staff, and I personally have helped people on the desk who are kind of navigating through the process of like untangling all of these things, you know? So it's better to know how to not get it started than have to learn how to get out of it, you know, once you get there. So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate
yeah.
you.
All right. Have a good night.
Have a
Bye
great
bye.
night. Thank you so much. Bye.